What if Deku was the son of Mount Lady? Part 1? Or the whole series? I'm not sure. I do really want to make the entire series of this just in today's video because I didn't upload yesterday. So I'm hoping this might be around an hour or maybe only 40 minutes, but this would probably be the entire series in this What If. Now, I'd also like to say go subscribe to the top link in the description, as that is my second channel, Anime Outlet 2, and where I'm going to be posting basically sneak peeks about what if Deku was the son of Mount Lady and my what ifs in the future. So, getting into this what if, Izuku was born to Mount Lady in Kimono Woods. I'm just going to be calling him Kimono Woods. That's how I've always called him. I know that's probably not the right pronunciation. Kimono Woods is probably the right one, but I'm going to be calling him Kimono Woods, because why not? So Izuku was born to his two parents, Mount Lady and Kimono Woods. Now, from there, it'd be a downward spiral. Izuku would be nursed until the age of 2, where then you would be neglected, as Mount Lady and Kimono Woods would basically just to start neglecting him, as they see he can just take care of himself, as they're pretty much just always out looking for jobs as a hero, with Mount Lady doing some other stuff on the side. Now, Izuku would never actually be taken to the quirk doctor for some strange reason, probably because he was being neglected, as Izuku would be forced to learn what his quirk was on his own. He can basically grow in size and shrink in size, and he can also make massive trees with basically the snap of his finger. He can, if he wants to, all he has to do is just place his hand down on the dirt, and a tree will pop up from that dirt, and he can basically manipulate that tree. So from there, he's forced to train his quirk, as his strive to be a hero is stronger than his sadness for being neglected by his two parents. Now, at the age of 10, he's looking around on the internet until he finds a strange source, as he's looking at and digging into basically the lives of his parents, as he pretty much doesn't know them, as he ends up finding something called OnlyFans. He clicks on it and is just shocked to see that there is hundreds of pictures and all this. Let's say you don't have to pay for it right now in this universe. Izuku's just shocked by this, and he says, "My mom pays more attention to her OnlyFans account than she does to her own kid. To me. What the hell? What? Why? Why, world, why?" As Izuku shuts the tab, and from there starts training even harder. Now, one day when he was training in the woods, he meets a young kid with half red and half white hair, with basically a burn mark on one of his eyes. He asks him why he's in the woods, as this strange kid says he's running away from his dad who was abusing him. To which Izuku says, "Oh, who's your father?" This is the point where Todoroki says that his name is Shoto Todoroki and his father is Endeavor. Izuku thinks, so we're not too different. My mother is Mount Lady and my father's Kimono Woods. They both have been neglecting me. I can't remember the last time I saw them. At the age of 3, I had to learn how to cook. I had to walk from home to school every single day because they couldn't bother to take me. Can't tell you how many times I've had to brush off people that could have kidnapped me. That almost did. It's insane. As that from that point on, Izuku and Todoroki become pretty good friends, as they basically train together in the woods up until the UA entrance exam, where they both go into it and are basically in the same testing place, as they're not from the same school. Todoroki going to a private one, Izuku going to a very dirty public school that basically has no money whatsoever. I mean, it's cockroach infested and all that crap. basically to give you guys an understanding. Now, Izuku would walk into the UA entrance exam, take the written exam, and then go on to do the practical exam. Now, from here, he'd try and figure out a strategy before the start of the exam. Now, once the doors opened, Izuku would place his hand down on the floor as a massive tree would sprout out from the middle of the fake city. If you guys have ever seen Black Clover, William Vengeance, basically what Izuku's doing, as this huge tree then has its branches wave around and just grab robots using its branches and then just crushes them. Izuku just watching from atop the tree as he sees all of the robots just almost being destroyed by this huge tree. Now, in the auditorium or whatever where the heroes are watching, all of them are just looking on in shock with their mouths dropped. Who the hell is this kid, and how the hell is he so damn powerful? As they just see this massive tree basically just destroying a ton of little robots. Now from this point, Nezu says, let's test him even further, as he flips open a hatch and presses a huge red button as this zero pointer rises up from the ground. Izuku would see this zero pointer as he'd hop down from his tree, and while he's hopping down or floating down, he'd just turn into this huge giant person, a giant Izuku, as he'd basically just wind his fist back and uppercut the robot's head as it pops off its hinges as the robot's head falls down, with Izuku picking up the robot's body, the rest of his hand, and moves it aside as he shrinks down back to normal size and picks up Uraraka, who was down there, and helps her to a recovery girl. Now from here, Izuku was basically praised by Recovery Girl for saving him. Meanwhile, the heroes are just looking on in complete shock. Holy crap! This kid is insanely strong. He got first place so easily. Has like some sort of tree quirk and size quirk? Wait, those sound familiar. Could he possibly be... Yeah, wait. Yup, he's the son of Mount Lady and Kimono Woods. Nezu said this as the heroes look on in shock and say, "Geez, never knew they could have a baby with such a strong quirk." Now, from there, Izuku would walk back to his house, where he'd get the acceptance letter from UA, where this would be one of the first times his parents would actually talk to him, with them saying congratulations, with Izuku just giving them basically this cold eye, with almost hatred, pure hatred, looking towards both of them, as he said, "Shut up. You both for the past 12 years have done nothing but neglect me. You deserve nothing a part of this." As Izuku would walk up to his room, where he'd stay there until he'd go to UA for the first day of school. He'd walk into the school as Izuku would just walk down there, with Aizawa walking in, telling them what they will be doing for their test. Now, from there, Izuku would basically walk down with the rest of them, get changed into the PE uniforms, and basically just help Aizawa do the tests, or with the rest of the class he'd do the tests. As Izuku would end up being called first, being the first in the practical exam, as he'd be tossed a ball and said to throw it. Izuku would grow in size to the size of a giant, as he'd reel back his arm and just throw the ball as far as he could, sending it flying into the upper atmosphere. Sorry if you guys do hear anything. I think people are mowing my grass today, so I can't really fix that. But the entire class is shocked by what Izuku just did. He just threw a ball into the atmosphere with such ease. How is this kid so strong? As they look at him in just pure shock, as Izuku just shrinks down and says, Oh, I just have a strong quirk, and I've been training for 12 years almost, it seems like. Can't really remember when I first started training, though. As they do the rest of the tests, with Izuku coming in first, Todoroki coming in second. Now, this is the point where somebody points it out that Izuku has the last name of Mount Lady or Kimono Woods, with Todoroki having the last name of Endeavor. This is the point where Izuku just says, well, yes, my parents are Mount Lady and Kimono Woods, and his is Endeavor. As the class just says, what? Your parents are heroes? You're so lucky. As both Todoroki and Izuku have a grim expression on their face almost immediately, with Izuku barking back that they're not lucky at all. Izuku being neglected for basically almost his entire life, with Todoroki being abused his entire life. As the entire class just looks at him and like, what? But shouldn't it be amazing? You both should live in mansions or something. Izuku just saying, yes, we do, but I'd rather have my parents' support than this. She paid more attention to her OnlyFans than me. Do you not understand how troubling that could be to me? Her son? You guys have no clue how bad it can be for us. You guys have no clue. As Izuku and the rest of the class walk back to their houses waiting for the next day of school, Izuku walks into class along with the other students as brought to their surprise that All Might will be teaching them for their heroics class today. Now, from there, All Might basically runs through the door, yelling he's running through the door like a normal person. And from that, he then tells them that he will be doing a Heroes vs. Villains assignment with them. The entire class basically thinks, what could they be doing? As All Might then explains what they're going to do for this assignment, how there's going to be a bomb. 2 villains will hide that bomb, and 2 heroes have the task to try and find it. Now, from there, Izuku would end up putting on his hero costume. I have no clue how it would look. That's up to you guys, your imaginations. Everyone has their different opinion. As Izuku would be paired up with, let's say, Momo, with Bakugo being paired up with Ida. Now, from this point, Izuku would end up waiting outside the fake building with Momo, as Izuku would walk in once All Might told them to, as he would then put his hand down on the floor as a tree would sprout up right in the middle of the building, as it'd start growing and smash through the upper floors until a huge tree poked out of the top of the building. From there, Izuku would climb this tree up until he saw the main room. Izuku, hiding in the leaves, would then end up growing in size, and he'd jump over top and behind the building as he'd basically peel the rest of the top off the ceiling, as he'd grab the bomb with his fingers, as he would give it down to Momo as she would disarm it. And I added a new feature, basically them having to disarm it. Didn't really matter. Izuku and Momo would walk back to the upper part of UA, where they'd end up meeting All Might, as he would congratulate both of them on the victory. The rest of their classmates would go, as that day ends up being finished. From there, Aizawa tells them that in a couple weeks' time, they will be going to a place called the USJ for some hero training. Now, once those weeks pass, the rest of the class gets their hero suits on, piles up onto a bus as they drive off to the USJ. And from there, they walk into the USJ where they meet 13, who explains their activities on what they will be doing. Now, his speech, I don't know, gets interrupted halfway through by a huge portal as it opens up, revealing hundreds of villains walking through it. 3 most prominent ones, the purple portal thing, the guy with all the hands on him, and then a massive bird-looking monster and it looks absolutely weird. From here, Aizawa jumps down and says, 13, protect the students, as he starts to fight the villains, taking out many of them. Now, Kirogiri would end up coming and defeating 13 as he would spread out the students, with Izuku going to the water zone with Sue and Moneta. Now, from here, Izuku would try to calm down Moneta, as Moneta was crying, saying he doesn't want to die, as Izuku would think on what he could do to try and get them out of their situation. So he ends up putting his hand on the boat as a tree sprouts from it, as it basically becomes another huge tree, just like the one in the entrance exam. This catches the attention of most of the villains around the base, seeing a massive tree sprout up, as this tree goes around, rounding up many of the villains and capturing them, as if you look up on the tree, you'd see many of these villains just being held by a tree branch surrounding them, basically making them unable to move, as they just be forced to sit up there, waiting for heroes to come and capture them. Now, from that point, Izuku would end up basically getting Sue and Moneta to swim back to the main entrance, as Shigaraki would start clapping very slowly and said, "Well done! You were able to defeat a massive army of villains. Now can you defeat Nomu? Nomu, kill that brat!" As Nomu would rush at Izuku, with Izuku trying to block himself using tree bark, only to have it smash up into pieces as he'd be sent flying into a wall. As he'd cough up blood and say, "Jesus, this thing's stronger than I thought it was." As he'd get up and start to grow in size, as he'd charge right at the Nomu, as Izuku would try to kick the Nomu, which the Nomu was sent flying back, only to have the Nomu jump at Izuku and basically punch it right in the stomach, with Izuku coughing up blood as he'd start to shrink, as the Nomu would then grab Izuku by its head and smash him into the floor, as Izuku would basically just lose all consciousness. He'd be laying there completely blank. Now, at this point, Aizawa says, "Izuku!" as he would charge at the Nomu, only to be punched away, sending him flying into a wall. As Shigaraki says, "Good, Nomu. Now make sure that Izuku brat's dead." As the Nomu would grab Izuku by his head once again and throw him right at the ceiling of the USJ, with Izuku smashing right through the glass ceiling, as he'd smash right through all of the trees surrounding the USJ as well. From there, Izuku would be laying there in his consciousness, just thinking, is he dead yet? Is this what heaven looks like? Or is this hell? Where is he? Is he dead or alive? So many questions. As he'd just think for a moment, say, if I'm still alive, I gotta save my friends, my classmates, my teacher. I can't let them die. As Izuku would start to stand up very slowly, as he unlocked a new ability. Basically, I'm calling this a gold bark, where he basically surrounds himself in a type of armor, with basically the bark just being gold and very powerful. So he just unlocked a new ability called Gold Bark, because I'm really bad at naming things. So yeah, Izuku would then rush into the building with this Gold Bark ability, as he'd see the Nomu beating down on Aizawa. Izuku would then basically just think about the Nomu, or think about a tree sprouting out of the Nomu, as Izuku would basically have a golden massive tree sprout out of the Nomu's chest, as he basically rips apart the Nomu, as the golden tree implants itself in the direct center of the USJ, as the Nomu is screaming in pain and agony as it's ripped up bit from bit by this golden tree. As the Nomu then dies, with Izuku basically having this golden tree be implanted in the center of the USJ, basically as a memorial to remember what happened that day and how they should have a need to basically stop that from ever happening again. Now, from there, most of this hero staff from UA would end up breaking into the USJ's doors as they'd say, "We're here to stop the villains," only to see the villains have escaped, or somewhat. They look over to the water zone of the USJ to see a huge tree with a ton of villains just stuck in these tree branches, and then they look at the center to see a massive golden tree just sitting there, implanting itself into the fountain as they basically get all the villains, capture them, as they're forced to wonder what are they going to do with the trees. I guess they can leave them there? I mean, it's such a huge tree, they can't really do anything to remove it unless they ask Izuku to. But I mean, why not just keep it there? As that day passes with the heroes praising Izuku for his heroic actions, with Izuku going back to his house thinking about his new form, Golden Bark. Now that kind of sounds like a dog thing, but tree bark, golden tree bark, basically what I'm getting at. As Izuku would then go back to UA to see that in 2 weeks they will be doing the UA Sports Festival, and that they all have only 2 weeks to train to prepare for it. Now Izuku would end up just trying to train his Golden Bark abilities, as that was truly basically unstoppable, as he was able to defeat that thing that seemed so powerful before he unlocked that ability. So he'd end up basically getting some level of control over his golden tree bark form, as he would go into UA ready to win the UA Sports Festival. Now from there, Midnight would say that they need their UA first year representative to come up onto the stage, with Izuku walking up to the stage saying that he just wants a good fight from everyone, and he basically expects a lot from many of them, so to not let him down. So from there, Izuku would walk back to his Class 1A spot, as the entire crowd would cheer from Izuku's speech, as the first event is announced to be a race. Now, Izuku would basically wait in the starting line like everyone else, waiting for this race to begin. Now, once it does, Izuku would basically run out in front of everybody, and once he was a good enough distance ahead, he'd transform into this huge giant of a person, as Mount Lady and Kimono would just spit out their food and say, "Holy crap, is that our son? I didn't know he had a quirk." "Wait, you didn't know he had a quirk? I didn't know he had a quirk either." "Oh crap. How did we not know this? We're his parents." As Izuku would basically run out and defeat all 3 of the 0 pointers, he'd hop over the giant pit, as he would then basically just hop over the landmine, shrink down, and walk through the tunnel, as he would become get the first place award in the race, as the entire crowd would cheer, as Izuku would think that's 1 event down, 2 more to go, as he waits for the rest of the students to finish the race. From there, Izuku is said to have 10 million points, and that he will probably be targeted first, and that they will be doing a cavalry battle next. Now, Izuku just doesn't have anybody who wants to join his team, So his team is made up of a tree. Or not really, actually. He just grows in size and just puts the little headband on his head as he just waits for everyone to try and get him as they try and fly up, or Bakugo would, only to have Izuku just swat him away pretty easily, as Izuku would basically just feel people kicking at his knees and stuff, or like punching at his knees, trying to get him to basically drop the headband, only for none of that to work, as Izuku would be announced as the winner of the cavalry battle. Next up would be the 1v1 tournament, with Izuku going up against Shinso, as Izuku would basically just grow to basically a medium size, as he'd walk up to Shinso and just flick him on the head as he'd fall backwards and out of bounds, giving Izuku the win, with Izuku saying, "Man, you really couldn't train your body much. You're weak now. You should have at least trained your body so you'd actually have a chance against people with useful quirks and fighting. Yours is still useful as a hero, but you gotta train for that. It's the reason you didn't make it into Class 1A or Class 1B, because you didn't train. You thought it'd be handed to you, when nothing's handed to you." As Izuku would walk away, his next match being against Todoroki. Now Izuku would basically see Todoroki as a rival. They both have hero parents, so they both want to become number one to show the hero parents that they are the best without them. However, Izuku knows Todoroki won't become the best unless he uses his fire. So Izuku tries to yell at Todoroki to use his fire, as Todoroki says he'll never use that bastard's quirk. Izuku would respond to this saying, "Todoroki, it's not your father's quirk, it's your quirk. He doesn't have any control over your flames, you have full control over them." As Todoroki would light up in flames, as Izuku said, "Oh crap, I didn't think this one out. I can't use my trees against this. Well, and again, I can just grow." As Izuku starts to grow in size, he becomes a giant, he basically steps over to Todoroki and just pushes him out of bounds, as he really can't do anything to Izuku, who's basically standing over him, as Todoroki can't really defend himself, with Izuku being much stronger in his giant form. Now, from there, Izuku would then go on to beat Ida in the semifinals, as it's now time for the finals, Izuku versus Bakugo, who really hasn't come up in the series so far, which is kind of weird. Really weird that he hasn't shown up in the series yet. As Izuku would walk up to the arena with Bakugo doing the same, as Izuku would basically just go into his golden bark form. Sure, the explosions might burn a bit of it, but it sure can help against Bakugo's high damaging explosions. So once the match starts, Izuku goes into his golden bark form, as he would charge at Bakugo charging at Izuku, with each explosion chipping away a tiny bit of Izuku's golden bark form, but Izuku was barely able to keep it going, with Bakugo end up sending his final explosion right at Izuku, which was aimed right at Izuku's head, as Izuku falls back, looking almost like he's unconscious, as he stands up with half of his face, or his helmet, of the golden bark form basically torn off, with showing Izuku's eye, as Izuku charges right at Bakugo, who was now exhausted from using his most powerful attack, and trying to dodge, only for Izuku to punch his absolute hardest, sending Bakugo flying into the back wall, basically signifying Izuku as the winner of of the UA Sports Festival. From there, Izuku is then basically standing on a podium with All Might giving Izuku a golden medal, as the next day comes with Aizawa telling them that they will be basically choosing who to internship with. Izuku would see basically Kimono Woods and Mount Lady both tried to get him to basically internship with them, but he decides not to, he just thinks for a moment and chooses a random person called Night Eye, as Izuku would show up to Night Eye's hero agency. As he'd walk in, so he'd say, "So, you're Night Eye. Why'd you want me to internship with you?" So Night Eye would then say he sees potential in Izuku, as Night Eye would basically train Izuku with Mirio, who was there, as they would end up training, and halfway through, Night Eye would tell them that they are going to look for somebody called Overhaul. Now, their search would deem basically nothing, as they wouldn't be able to find him, but Night Eye basically just said that if Izuku wants to internship with him longer or just keep coming there to train, he basically can. So once the internships are over, the hero killer being fought by Todoroki and beaten, Izuku would continue to go over to Night Eye's hero agency, where he would train with Night Eye for weeks. Now, when it came time, Aizawa told them that they will be doing the final exam, as Izuku would go to Night Eye and ask him if he could train him to make him stronger, at least a little bit. Then Night Eye would end up telling Izuku the weakness of All Might, seeing as Izuku was very trustworthy, as Night Eye would tell Izuku how All Might was injured and how that might help Izuku save him, but don't use too much of his power that he's gained during their training, as that could possibly kill All Might. So Izuku says, "Well, what do you mean, All Might?" This is the point where Night Eye says, "I've watched over each and every single one of UA's final exams. The two strongest students are always paired up against All Might. Happens every year." As Izuku says, but wasn't All Might not participating last year or something? Wasn't he just the teacher this year? Night Eye just says, "Don't think into it," as Izuku would walk out as the 2 weeks pass of him training with Night Eye, as he goes in, does the written part of the exam, passes that, as he goes on to do the hero part of the final exam, which he's end up paired with Bakugo and to face off against All Might. Izuku tells Bakugo that they have to try their hardest, as Izuku immediately goes into his golden bark form, which is still not perfected, as Izuku and Bakugo would walk into the city looking around for All Might. Now, they would end up finding All Might, as All Might would go in and punch Izuku, basically shattering Izuku's golden bark form, as he coughs up and says, "I can't believe he's this strong." As Izuku immediately grows in size, grabs Bakugo, as Izuku just starts sprinting as fast as he can in this huge form, which basically takes him maybe around 5 seconds to get to the basically finish line. All they have to do is to pass that, and they pass, as Izuku shrinks down as he passes that, with Bakugo saying, "What the hell, I could have beaten him." To which Izuku says, "You couldn't beat me with my golden bark form. He shattered that. There was no way we could have beaten him." As Bakugo thinks for a moment and says, "Yeah, you're probably right." As Aizawa tells them they will be going to basically a training camp the next day, with the rest of the students getting their stuff as they go to the training camp for a week. Now, when they're on the bus, they end up being told to get off, where they meet the Wild Wild Pussycats, to where they happened to have a landslide happen, to which Izuku was able to catch himself on a tree branch as he sees the bus speed off. From here, Izuku grows in size, basically puts down both of his hands as his classmates climb up onto his hands as he puts them on his shoulders as he starts to walk to the training camp, seeing it in the distance. He ends up getting to the training camp before the Wild Wild Pussycats even get there, as they basically just go and wait while the Wild Pussycats finally arrive an hour later, somehow taking them an hour, as the Wild Pussycats and the heroes would just say, "How'd you all get here so fast?" To which Izuku just said, "Oh, I put all of them on my shoulders and I just walked over here. Wasn't that hard considering I have a giant cork or whatever that allows me to grow." To which I said, "I should have thought of that." As the Wild Pussycats would put them through tons amounts of training. Now, Izuku would end up being paired with Bakugo having to basically send his explosions at Izuku's golden bark form, with Izuku trying it not to have it chip or break, and if it does, he has to basically regrow the golden bark form as fast as possible. Now, he would end up doing this as they'd all end up having to make their food, with Izuku basically being the primary person that makes it, as Izuku was forced to learn how to cook when he was barely even 3 or 4. Now, from here, teachers tell them that they should do some sort of, jump scare type activity with Class 1B, basically trying to scare Class 1A. Everyone's down for that as they all walk into the woods. Now, this is the point where Izuku points out that a giant blue flame is up above the trees, as Izuku runs over to heroes and points this out to them as they say that the villains are attacking. Now, from this point, Izuku runs back into the forest, remembering that the young kid Kota was still possibly out there, as Izuku would rush out there trying to find him. As Izuku would find Kota with Muscular, Izuku would jump down, going into his golden bark form, and basically would implant a golden tree into Muscular, as he'd rip out Muscular's insides, killing Muscular instantly, with Izuku grabbing Kota and rushing it back to the heroes, as Izuku would run around in his golden bark form, looking for villains that he can try to stop to save many of his classmates. He ends up stopping some villains as he runs around, only to be captured into a sort of marble as he's taken to the League of Villains hideout. From here, he's out of this marble with Bakugo as the League of Villains tried to convince them to join, as they say that the heroes neglected them, or Izuku, that Bakugo just has a fiery temper and that he should join and he'd make a great villain. Both of them say they will never become villains, as the League of Villains just says, "Shoot, I didn't think this far, I thought you guys would just join." As Izuku just basically face palms in his head as he's being tied up, as Izuku, not wanting to reveal that he can still use his powers, ends up putting a tiny seed down in the ground, where it sprouts a tiny sapling behind him as he waits. 2 weeks pass as Izuku hears a knock saying pizza delivery. Izuku, knowing that might be heroes, would instantly make the sprout grow as fast as it possibly can as it captured every single one of the villains, as Izuku would then have this tree break Izuku's chains and break Bakugo's chains, as they'd open up the door and say, "Yeah, I just captured all the villains. No need to thank me. I also freed our chains or whatever that they had on us." As slow clapping is heard from behind them, as a grayish portal or portalish goo type thing opens up, as All for One comes out, as he basically teleports all the villains away, and he immediately goes into a fight with All Might. Izuku watches this fight, saying, "Come on, All Might, don't let us all down. You're one of the only heroes that are left, one of the only good heroes that are left. Don't let us down, All Might. Please, you have this." As All Might would fight his absolute hardest, trying to defeat All for One, to no avail, as All Might would be punched back, as All Might would go unconscious. All for One would then say the new era of heroes is, or the era of heroes is over, and the new era of villains will now begin. Izuku says that will never happen, as he goes into his golden bark form and charges right at All for One, only to basically just be slapped away very easily by All for One, as Izuku's golden bark form would easily shatter, as he'd be sent flying into a building, where he'd go into that same unconscious state that he was in the USJ, where he says, "I can't lose. What about all my friends, all these civilians? I gotta save them." As Izuku would wake up, and almost a massive bright yellow light would appear from where Izuku was. He would stand up in this perfected golden bark type form, as Izuku would basically have no golden helmet, as his hair would basically just transform into like this shiny golden hair, as his golden bark basically looked a lot stronger as well. He'd basically step once and be right in front of All for One, as Izuku would punch All for One, sending him flying back, as All for One would say, "Not bad, kid, not bad, but it's not good enough," as All for One would go to punch Izuku using many of his quirks, only to have Izuku raise his hand up and slash down, basically cutting All for One's arm clean off. So he's like, "Damn it, can't lose now," as Izuku would make his hand go to the side of him, as he'd slash the other way, as All for One's stomach would be slashed, as his legs, or the top half of his body, would be separated from his legs, as he'd fall down, with Izuku creating a tree, as that tree turns into a golden sword, as Izuku walks up to All for One and points the golden sword at him, with All for One saying that, "Please, don't kill me," as Izuku says, "You're too dangerous to be left alive," as he pushes the golden sword into All for One's throat, killing him instantly. If you get that reference, congratulations. As Izuku would then be basically congratulated for defeating All for One, somebody that even All Might couldn't defeat. And from there, the civilians voted that Izuku should become a temporary hero, or more like a permanent hero, as they deemed him that he has such high potential that they should just give him a hero, basically a hero license or a quirk license right away. So Izuku was then given a quirk license, as he would then end up having to take a test, third year's take, to see if he would be able to pass and become a hero, basically skipping all those years, seeing as Izuku was incredibly knowledgeable. From there, Izuku would pass that test, as he is declared a new hero, and from there he would stop many crimes very quickly and easily, with his hero name being Golden Tree, as he would very easily climb up the ranks and become the number one hero. Now, from there, Izuku would then continue to go to UA, basically just learning learning more things that could possibly better himself as a hero, up until one point where they end up having to try and fight Overhaul, to which Izuku, still going to Night Eye's agency, would end up knowing about this and would come along too. From there, Izuku would fight Overhaul, with Overhaul trying to defeat Izuku, but Izuku using his golden bark form and the golden tree sword, Izuku would easily be able to beat Overhaul, save Eri, and pretty much adopt her, as Izuku would become the #1 hero with his adopted daughter Eri. And that's where I'm gonna leave this story off. This is the final what if, or the final part of this what if, not final what if. This is the only part of this what if, at least that I'm going to do, as this is the whole series, all in 45 minutes. At least that's how long I think this is, which is absolutely crazy that I did the entire what if series all in one episode, when you have some of my longest series, like What If Deku was a God of Destruction, in like 8 or 9 parts. So I hope you guys did enjoy this what if. Make sure to go check out the top link in the description, as that is my second channel, Anime Outlet 2. And goodbye.